Hi, Dr. Sonny Spira from Progressive Dental. This is our Intro to Implants video. An implant ultimately becomes a new tooth root. So if you take a tooth, and you take the two parts of the tooth, the top, which is the crown, and the bottom, which is the root, that comprises a tooth. When a tooth is gone, it's fully gone. The implant is like putting a new root for a new tooth there. Whether it becomes a single tooth or an anchor for a full dentition or part of an apparatus that denture gets connected to, that implant serves as an anchor. The reason most people get implants is to either replace a single tooth, multiple teeth, or an entire dentition. Say you have a full denture and you have no teeth and the dentures move or are sloppy and you want it more secure or more anchored. That's where one place where a denture can be stabilized by having something to secure it or fix it to, be it screwed in place or snapped into place. That's one way. The other way is if you have a missing single tooth and you want to replace it and the teeth around them are good and you don't want to touch them, well, an implant can be placed and then a restoration, typically a crown with its necessary abutment underneath it, are done on that implant to replace that tooth. The single missing tooth is a very common tooth replacement for implants. The implant is placed where the old root for the old tooth typically was. The bone will determine the angulation of the implant, and once the implant is placed, a cylinder or an abutment is placed inside the implant, which will stick up and a crown will be made over the top of it. The procedure is a surgical procedure. First, the area has to be determined and evaluated for bone density, bone width, bone height, and bone length. Because an implant is placed surgically into the jaw, you don't want to mess with certain structures. So once that's been assessed and you have enough bone to support it, the implant is placed into the jawbone. First, the area of the gum is opened. Then the bone is now exposed and you tap or you put a small, usually like a pilot hole or a small hole, you measure the length and then you continue to increase that width or size depending on your implant. Most implants are anywhere from 3 to 5, sometimes 6 millimeters in diameter. The implant is placed into a very specifically tapped hole, which is designed to be the exact size of the implant. So the implant goes in and it engages the bone around it, but it doesn't torque it or damage it. Then it's allowed to heal and the gum is covered back over it. The bone at that point in time will start to integrate or mesh or merge with the implant so the two become one. It's called osseointegration. I will tell you in all honesty, placing an implant is like having a tooth removed. If you've ever had a tooth removed and you remember that procedure, hopefully it wasn't a nightmare, it's approximately equal to that. It should be done painlessly. So while the procedure is done, you should not be in any discomfort. Will you feel a little pressure? Maybe, but that should be all. The process for actually placing an implant at the appointment or the surgery can vary anywhere from 20, 30 to 60 minutes. Sometimes longer if more prep work has to be done. But the actual placement of the actual implant typically is 5 to 10 minutes. The whole procedure, meaning the implant, the integration, which is the fusion, and then the restoration, vary if it's an upper jaw versus a lower jaw. A lower jaw needs 4 months to properly integrate. The upper jaw needs 6. So typically the implant is placed, let's say here, 6 months go by, it can be uncovered, gums then heal, then an impression is made, and 2 weeks later you can have typically a restoration, a crown. So on an upper jaw, 7 months is about a standard you can expect. The lower jaw, about 5 months from surgical placement to actual restoration. The healing or the post-op should be unconsequential. The gum's usually sewn back together, typically given an oral antibiotic mouth rinse to help keep the area clean as it heals and as things integrate, and usually heals without incident. If it's a single tooth, like we talked about here, you care for it just like you do any other tooth in your mouth. If it's a denture underlay or a denture abutment or a denture anchor, typically you take your denture out and you clean around them just like you would a tooth. If the denture is fixed in place with either a metal apparatus that the denture gets screwed into, you have to clean underneath that denture, water picks or flossing aids to help clean those areas. Because one of the things you have to have is it has to be cleansable. So depending on the restoration will depend on what has to be utilized to keep it clean. But typically a single tooth, you clean it just like any other tooth you have in your mouth. In our area, implants can range anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000. The implant itself is just one segment. An abutment needs to be placed, and then typically a crown would need to be placed. By the time that procedure is done, it can be anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000 depending on what's being done. We're here and happy to help. If any of this is interesting to you or something you think you might need, we'll be happy to have a consultation for free with you at any point. Just call the number that you see or hit our website up, send us a message, email, text, whatever, and we can schedule you a free consultation with one of our doctors that places implants. Love to see you. Thank you.